Well, I won't use the word ethic. I'll use a moral responsibility or a fiduciary responsibility. I think the record companies have a fiduciary responsibility to account and pay properly. I think they have a moral responsibility to help the artists maximize the income for them. So I would use the word moral, and I would a moral responsibility and a fiduciary duty. Fiduciary duty is to maximize the income and pay the artist promptly, not forcing artists to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in auditing on a constant basis to find monies that they always find. So yeah, I think there's some responsibility there. I think generally, surprisingly enough, in many instances, although we always find money, in many instances, it's a little easier to find the money today than it was years ago. There were a lot of small companies who remained nameless years ago who never paid royalties. Never paid royalties. And we have a client who we know very well who was a victim of that. And yet along came a major company that bought that little company and started to pay the royalties. And not only paid the royalties, but increased the royalty that was in the old contract. So they lived up to their moral responsibility in that regard. They say, and this is a very well-known artist, you know very well, this contract was really awful. It was an abomination. It was unfair at the time. And we're not only going to pay royalties, but we're going to increase the royalties that was provided in that contract. A number of these majors have done that, surprisingly enough. Universal is one of them. There are several have done that. Sony's done it in several instances. I know EMI has done it. I know specific instances where they've done it. I know Warner's has done that in certain where they said, we're going to ignore the old royalty and we're going to upgrade it. So in some instances, they come to the table. In others, they don't. Payola is wrong. It comes in many forms, and it has always been wrong, and it's usually the middle person who is the winner on the payola scam. And the record companies, it's not an excuse. The record companies felt that if they didn't do it and get their product in the air, somebody else would do it and get their product in the air in that particular place. And I think this has always been a dilemma for the record companies because they see if they don't do it and their competitors are doing it. But I think lately, maybe some of them have learned a lesson and they're cutting down on that in a lot of ways. A lot of the people who were the middle people are no longer there. And so payola may be on the wane. I say maybe, I don't know exactly. But it's always been a very difficult moral issue. You've got to tell those students who say that record companies commit sins too, what about the artist? The artist didn't commit those sins. And they're taking money out of the artist, they're taking money out of the producer, they're taking money out of the songwriter. So that's how they're getting back at their record companies? They haven't answered that question for themselves in the correct way. Yes, the record companies aren't always the best, and they've done a lot of things wrong, but on the other hand, for the most part, they're paying their royalties. Although you have to audit. You have to keep them honest. You have to audit on a constant basis. But the victim is not just the record company. The victim is of that illegal downloading is the artist, the producer, the songwriters, the engineers, and everybody else that's involved in the making of a recording.